Hello everybody and welcome. This is the Midnight McBride show, show number 68. I'd just like to say a couple of words. I've not had a shave and I'm not quite firing on all cylinders this week. If you don't know, a good friend of ours and somebody that has been a big part of my journey in the past, and I've known her for probably 30 years, Kelly Walsh, took her life at the beginning of this week. So, yeah, just sending a lot of love out, especially to Kirsty E. Carrins. And I may do a separate little video just recalling some funny stories about some of the things we got up to with Kelly. Anyway, today's show number 68, is called Madiha's Magic. And I have been having so much fun with the fact that I can go, yes, Madiha. I find a lot of comedy in that. But there's a reason for it, and I've got a wonderful human being and an inspirational lady who I've only come across recently. She's one of Liam's yoga rebels, and through that avenue I've met so many beautiful people from that tribe. We have Madiha Sosan. Madiha, boom.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hi. Now, in your name tag for this show, it's going to say award-winning motivational speaker and podcast host. That is the tip of the iceberg with some of the things you do. As we went through your show notes, I realised you'd even missed loads of stuff out your show notes because you've done that much stuff, and it's fascinating. The reason why your story is beautiful is because it's not been a smooth ride, and you've had lots of issues over the years and through your childhood, growing up, and suffered from anxiety, didn't go outside for a while. Then you have an out-of-body experience, start of your spiritual awakening, which is probably where the podcast title comes from. Yes. And off you went. And then it's like you're on a one-woman mission to take over the world now. You're doing amazing things. So delighted to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. We'll just talk about a couple of things. You've also been, we'll touch on them now, but you've been a warrior princess or a badass warrior recently in a video, a movie, and a music video. And you were working for TEDx for a while there as well, looking after some, which I didn't know. It's like you've done that much stuff that it didn't even make it into your show notes, so with this show, I always say, one of the quotes out my book is, your past doesn't define you, it's just the view on the journey to this present moment. And I like to talk about somebody's journey, everything that they've done in their life up to this point, because it explains things. And especially if it's not been an easy ride, it then becomes inspirational, which is what you are, Madiha.
Thank you.
I love that. Yes, Madiha. Of course, Madiha.
Yeah, I had that in the past as well. I was like, my dear or Madida. I was like, just call me Maddie.
Yeah.
It was easier.
Maddie, yeah. So we'll start at the beginning, Madiha. Start your journey. And you were born in Pakistan.
Yes.
What part?
In Rawalpindi, Pakistan. Yeah.
I can't even actually say that.
Do you want to practice it now?
Well, I can read it.
Okay, let's try.
Rawalpindi.
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 No, I'm copying you.
I'd mess with you now. You can't say it.
Yeah.
But you were born in Pakistan, and you're an only child.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about that. Start with your journey there.
So, I was born in Rawalpindi, and my parents they decided not to have any more kids. I was like, okay, I was like, now I'm thinking, why not?
They probably said, do we really want another one of her?
Maybe there was another soul trying to come in. I was like, why did you make that decision? I want to come in this one. Yes. But we didn't have much. Life in Pakistan was extremely hard because we didn't have much money.
Did they work, your parents, or?
Yeah, well, my dad was a nurse in hospital. My mom was ill. She had hepatitis C, so, she couldn't work, but my dad did most of the work. We still struggled with money.
Yeah. And you live with your grandma, is that right?
Yeah.
Is this right from the offset, or at a certain point? What happened?
Right from the beginning. First, my mom, in Asian sort of world, when you get married, you move to your husband's parents. But there was something that went on there that my dad stopped seeing his family, so we moved in with my grandma.
Right. All of you did?
Yeah, me, my mom and dad, yeah.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine. This then meant that you didn't have money for your mum's medicine or treatment?
Yeah, so because we didn't have any money, my mom was struggling quite badly. In Pakistan, you have to have a lot of money to like basically thrive. You know, there's no the system, the healthcare system in Pakistan isn't like how it is in England. You know, with NHS, we're so grateful that we have NHS. But in Pakistan, if you have to pay for every single thing, even your tests and your anything, even if you have serious illness, you have to pay money.
Yeah.
So because we didn't have enough money, my mom's symptoms were untreated. And she was struggling quite badly, actually. I remember when, I think I was 2 or 3, when the whole neighborhood came around to our place. I was like, what is going on here? And I saw my mom on the bed, like really ill. And one of the lady was, she went past and she goes to me that, oh, your mom may not survive this. And like, I was like 3-year-old hearing this. And I could feel that energy of intense energy around our house. But eventually, I don't know, I think they gathered all the money to take my mom to a hospital and to get her treated. Because if you don't treat hepatitis C, because it attacks in the liver, so, you know, if you don't treat it, it's, you know, it could turn out really bad.
So did they, as a community, did they all contribute so that your mum could get the treatment?
Yeah,
Right. Well, that's a beautiful
and the family
thing,
as
isn't
well.
it?
Yeah, which is amazing. That's one of the things that I do like about, you know, Pakistan. Culture-wise, we all come together. It's like really tight-knit.
Yeah.
Even if someone's in trouble, they, you know, we're the first one there to help them out.
You then said your father came to the UK when you were 3. So he went ahead, did he, before?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was to earn money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because obviously we didn't have enough money, so my dad was like, you know, my uncle was here, so he had his business here, and he got him. It's like, okay, you can come and work for me. So my dad moved to the UK to create a better life for us.
Yeah.
Around when I was 3.
What did he do when he got here? What did he work
Well,
as?
he worked in a post office first, and then a shop. He worked in a shop, and then he was working multiple jobs, really. Like he was in news agents and takeaways and things like that.
Once your dad had come to the UK, Madiha, you said that your mum wasn't able to look after you and your grandma. So what happened then?
So then my auntie and her husband took us in, and my other uncle took my grandma in because it was difficult.
So your grandma's at your uncle's, and then your other auntie and your uncle, that's where you and your mum are.
Yeah.
You then moved on to your school life, and you said you were abused at school. Now, this is sort of physical abuse, but not sexual abuse. Is that right?
Yes.
It's where... I'll let you tell us, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, I don't know, teachers in Pakistan, they're quite harsh. And there was one teacher who she was only doing it to me, not to anyone else, but she would get me in front of the class and she would ask me to read something. If I couldn't pronounce anything, she would hit me in the back, she'd punch me, she would slap me. And she would hit me with rulers and send me out the class in boiling hot, because like in Pakistan it's like 50-something degrees in summer, around summer.
Yeah.
And I used to be outside, like standing there, and school was quite terrifying because I didn't really want to be there, you know.
Yeah. Was she malicious? Did she behave like this with all the kids?
No, she was just doing it to me. I was the only person that she was picking on. And every time she would come near me, I would be afraid because she would come near me with a ruler, and then like she just out of blue, it's like she'll read my text, like what you've written, and then she would just hit me with a ruler. She'll tell me to get my hands out and she'll start hitting me.
I find it incredible that in this country, you know, up until, I don't know, go back 35 years ago, 30 years ago, corporal punishment was still intrinsic and part of the schooling system. And how ridiculous. A child isn't learning very well, struggling at school. I know, let's use physical violence. That'll get them to learn. That won't get them to learn anything, you know. But that was how we were conditioned and programmed, and we believed that was acceptable. Hitting a child in any way, as far as I'm concerned, is unacceptable. It shows lack of intelligence and really poor communication skills from any adult if they have to resort to hitting a child. If you can't explain and reason to that child and show them sympathy, empathy, compassion and love, then it's the adult that's got the problem, not the child.
Yeah.
You know,
but when you're younger, you don't realize it. You know, I only came across, I didn't think much of it until I was doing my own healing. It's like my self-worth issues and self-esteem issues are going back to what the teacher was doing to me. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you have experiences like that as a kid, you can carry them for many years, you know.
Many years.
Yeah.
It plays out in your relationships. It plays out in your everyday life without you realizing it.
So then you're off on your travels, Madiha. You come to the UK at 7 years old. How was that?
That was, at beginning was quite difficult because I didn't speak any English, and that meant I had no friends. And, you know, still my parents were struggling to earn money for us. And school life was difficult as well. Obviously, I didn't speak English. I didn't have any friends. And, you know, every time, and I was afraid of school because of what was happening in Pakistan. So every time a teacher would come near me, I would just be so afraid of her. And for a month, for months and months, every day I would cry in school, and the teachers didn't know what was going on. My parents didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why I was afraid. I just knew that I need to be afraid of this figure, this person. Yeah. This authoritative figure. That
pattern didn't repeat once you got to the UK, though, did it? It was isolated with that particular teacher.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was just in my subconscious mind that there's danger here.
Yeah.
And that's why I used to cry. And I remember like going into meetings with the principal, with my parents, and they ended up like saying, okay, if she doesn't stop crying, then we're going to have to put her in special needs school. So I stopped crying, but then slowly, when the teachers were quite nicer and more gentle here, and, you know, I had a really loving teacher, and I got attached to her in a way. It was nice not getting hit by a teacher, you know.
Yeah. I mean, if you get the right teachers when you're a kid, you learn quick and you're happy.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
You were in Bury, weren't you?
Yeah.
When you first came here?
Yeah.
And which school did you go to?
I went to St. Thomas's School.
Right.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was really good memories there.
Now, this I found quite unusual, and it is that you were in a cricket team.
Yes.
The only female in the cricket team.
Yes.
I didn't even, when I was at school, girls weren't allowed in the cricket team. You
Yeah.
know, I'm obviously older than you. How old are you, Madiha?
I'm 33.
Right.
Yeah.
When I was at school, girls couldn't be in the cricket team. And not agreeing with it, but that's how it was in my childhood. So, yeah, I mean, you must have been buzzing.
Yeah. I mean, you know, once I got settled into school, I ended up in taking wickets and hitting sixes, like just a normal PE session. And one of my teachers went up to the principal and said, "You need to have a look at this girl. She needs to be on the team." And he looked at me, and it was like I was like smashing everyone, like with hitting sixes, and he said, "Well, do you want to play in the next match?" And I was like, "Yes." And he goes, "We need to have permission from your parents." And I was like, uh-oh, because my parents are one of those is like, you should not play with a guy. You should not touch a guy. You should not even be near a guy. So it took a lot of like courage to for me to ask my parents, and even the principal came to our house to ask permission whether I could play in the team. And my dad was eventually, he was like, no, I'm not allowing that because you're young. We don't do that. We don't mix with guys and girls. We don't do that. Eventually he agreed because he knew how good I was. Me and my dad used to play cricket in the park every single day. He used to train me.
Yeah.
And so eventually I did end up being in team. And next match, well, like I remember walking out in the ground, and the other team were like, they started laughing at me. It's like, oh my God, what is this girl gonna do? She's gonna break a nail or something. And I ended up like just again smashing them, hitting for my first ball was a wicket, straight on wicket, and they were like, what is going on?
Yeah. Well, you can sometimes use that when you turn up and they're mocking you or ridiculing you. You think, I'll show you.
Yeah.
The thing is as well, you're quite small. You're teeny tiny.
Yeah, I know.
And so you must have packed a punch, a little pocket rocket.
Yeah. That's the theme for me. Nobody knows what I can come out with. I stay silent until bang, and they don't realize what's coming at them.
At this point, Madiha, your family is still struggling for money, and you mentioned in your notes that your father's working multiple jobs, and there's also a mention about sleeping on the floor as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we lived in we rented a private rented house, and we couldn't afford to pay the heating. So we had like in the living room, we had one heater and one bed, and my mom and dad gave me the bed while they slept on the floor, and that was our life for 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So your mum and dad were on the floor?
Yeah, they were literally on the floor, hard floor, sleeping.
Yeah. It's funny in life, sometimes I look back and I've had financial difficulties, I've been in bedsits on more than one occasion in my life, and had nothing. And although it's a tough period of your life, quite often I look back on that and it reminds you what's important. When you have nothing,
Yes.
you're very aware of what's actually important.
Yeah, I say that all the time to, and everyone, like, don't look at that story as in there's something bad happened. Look at it in a way where, I'm just so grateful that I had my dad and my mom. I was reunited with my dad, and we used to play cricket together, and we used to sit around the heater. We used to play board games. Ludo is like really special, like sort of board game in Pakistan. So so we used to play that all the time, laughing and joking. Even though my mom and dad were really stressed out, it was quite blissful at the same time.
It looks like that regardless of external circumstance and what's going on in the outside world, they still always made you a priority.
Yes.
The fact that they're on the floor and you're in the bed when you're only teeny tiny.
Yeah.
I would have said, you're on the floor, love.
It's because I used to move around so much, and my mom's like, I'm not going to get on the bed with her. And my dad's like, okay, I'm just going to sleep on the floor.
With your father playing cricket with you, Madiha, do you think he wanted a boy, or did you think it just didn't matter to him?
Well, to my dad, it wasn't a big deal. He loved me regardless, but his family didn't like the fact that I was a girl,
Right.
They very backdated families. Like if you're gonna give birth, you have to give birth to a boy.
Yeah. I can't get my head around that, but I know that's quite often the mentality, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is in the culture. And I've never met my dad's side of family because my dad moved away from them.
Right.
They apparently weren't nice people.
It's just not my place to judge, but
Yeah.
So then you're off on your travels again, and you're in Levenshulme.
Yes.
Tell us about this next part of your journey.
Right, so I got admission in Girls' High School, Levenshulme High School, and we were quite in a rush to find a place because Bury and Levenshulme is quite a bit further, quite a lot of travel going on. So We found another private rented place. Wasn't great, you know. It was half complete, but because we were desperate, we needed to get it. So it was damp, half complete. There was rats everywhere, and it was not healthy living conditions. Like, it's just not.
Was your mum working at the same time, or just your dad?
No, just my dad, because my mum's always been ill, so she was in and
Right.
out of hospital majority of the time. And my mum suffered from anxiety and depression quite a lot as well, because she's had traumatic life experiences herself.
Yeah.
And so it was just my dad always working multiple jobs.
So this next part of your journey, it's quite sad, obviously, but at the age of 13, then your dad gets a diagnosis. What was that?
He was diagnosed with cancer in his bladder first. That was soon as we moved into when we moved to Levenshulme.
Yeah.
And he was diagnosed with cancer, and it was in his bladder, and they did an operation on him as soon as they could because it was spreading. And after the operation, he was okay. You know, I was given the news like, you know, he's gonna be fine. Even at first when we found out, my parents didn't tell me anything. They obviously wanted to protect me, but they didn't really tell me that how bad it was.
Yeah.
And the doctors gave him maximum of 2 years to live, a year to live. And but my parents were like still putting up a front. It was like, yeah, everything is going to be okay. Your dad's going to be fine. The doctor said that he's going to be fine after the operation. So I was walking around thinking my dad was going to be okay. You know, it's no big deal. And I was young. I didn't really know much about what cancer was at that time. And then several months later, it came back, and it came back with a bang. It came back in his bowel, and then it spread really, really fast, really quickly. And I remember he used to go for radiation, chemotherapy. He used to be so ill, like with the pain of it. Like, you know, he used to roll on the floor crying in pain. And it was really hard to see. It was really hard, horrific. I mean, it's normally, you know, you don't want to see your parents like that. You don't. Normally, you look up to them. You see them healthy and fine and fit, you know. But since I was born, all I've ever seen was my parents ill. My mom got ill, and she was really extremely ill. And then my dad got ill around the age of 13.
In some ways, as difficult as it is, especially when you're a child and you see your parents who, when you're very young, you know, these like demigods almost, and then you see them deteriorate. But there is a blessing in disguise in that if you know the time's approaching, you've got that warning, so you can make sure you do spend some quality time with them, which is what you did.
Yeah, I did. But up until he passed away, I was still walking around thinking he was going to be fine because my parents made me think that. You know, they constantly said, even though the doctors were telling them something different, that he's only got a couple of months to live, is spreading really fast. They were telling me the complete opposite. It got to a point until he was really bad and he ended up in hospital. And then one day everyone was rushing around in the house, and I was like, what is going on? And then that's when my mom sat me down and said that your dad stopped breathing. He's only got a couple of days to live. That was like, what?
Yeah.
You were telling me that he's going to be absolutely fine. He's getting treated. He's going to make it through this. And the next minute you say, oh, he's dying in the next couple of days, sorry. That was a bit of a shock. It was like perhaps I was walking around in denial for a while as well.
Yeah. How old were you when your father actually passed?
Around 13. So
13.
He died within a year.
And you said that whilst this is going on, you were being bullied at school as well.
Yeah.
What was happening there?
So throughout year 7, I was bullied heavily by two girls, and
It's a shame you didn't have your warrior outfit then. And
Yeah.
your badass warrior. You could have sorted him out.
Yeah, I didn't. To be honest, I didn't really have any friends because I was in and out of school. With everything was going on at home, I started suffering from anxiety myself, and so I didn't really have any friends, and it just felt like there was just a couple of girls who were just picking on me. I don't want to get too much details, but
were they physical with you, or just was
it was just the verbal.
Yeah.
Sort of abuse,
sometimes that can be far worse than the physical aspect.
Yeah.
You get a bruise, you get a cut, it heals fairly quickly. Some of the mental scars can stay for a lot longer.
Yeah, I mean, like my, one memory that keeps popping up is when I was standing at the gates, and these two girls just came rushing in and shouting and screaming at me, and my dad was coming as well. I was waiting for my dad to pick me up, and he was coming, and he came rushing in. I was like, get lost, don't do this. And, he was quite like really angry. And, at that moment I had to sort of pull him away from them. But, it's that memory of having that father figure, protection, and it's sometimes it's really hard to talk about, because when I was in school, like I said, I didn't have anybody. So I remember sitting at the science class right at the back with only one bench while everyone else were with their friends, and I was alone right at the back, and I used to just do whatever I needed to do, walk around my school on my own, just to pass time, because I didn't have anyone to sit with.
It's almost like you think, you've had a rough ride up to this point, and then your dad's diagnosed with cancer, terminally ill, then your father passes, you're getting bullied at school, and you think, what else? How can it get any worse? But then your mother's health takes a big dive at this point as well. What happened there?
Yeah, so soon after my dad passed away, around 6 or 7 months later, my mom had a severe rheumatoid arthritis attack. And she was completely bedbound with hepatitis C, depression, obviously losing her husband, and then this severe rheumatoid arthritis where her fingers were sort of swelling up and bending really, really fast. And doctors were really worried at this point. And so it was like my whole world was just falling apart. Ever since I was little, all I've seen was pain and suffering, and seeing my parents ill. So one after the other, and then my mom was like completely crippled. So I had to become her carer at the age of 14.
Yeah. And you say at this point then you were out of school for 3 years?
Yeah, I was, because I had to take up the caring responsibilities. So I was from year 8, 9, and a bit of 10, I missed school completely.
From an academic point of view, they're the critical years, aren't they? That's when you're approaching your exams.
Yeah, they say that your GCSEs is the most important. But you quickly learn that it's not. You don't have, I believe that, even people who've gone on to do great things, they've not had any education.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It helps to get you into certain doors, open certain doors for you. But do you need certain qualifications to be successful in life? Bearing in mind, I don't judge success on financial gain anyway. It's about being happy. But do you need those qualifications? No, you don't. But if you want to be a doctor or a dentist or certain things,
absolutely,
then, you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
You then start to question God. You lose your belief in God. So up to this point prior, what was your religious upbringing?
So, my family's Muslim.
Yeah.
But I was sort of dipping in and out. I was trying to make up my mind. But when I started suffering from all of this, all of things were happening to me, I I kind of just became an atheist. I didn't believe in God. I was like, if God was real, why would he make me suffer? Why would he make anyone else suffer?
Up until this point, then you did believe in God.
I was a bit 50-50. Wasn't really sure. I know, like, my parents say, oh, you should pray to God. You know, it's like, but yeah, it wasn't half-hearted. I wasn't too bothered.
But I suppose you get to a certain point, and you're not alone. Lots of people do this, where if you do have beliefs and then you just keep getting trodden on and you're suffering all the time, and you think, you know what? If there was a God, why would he do this? You know, and then people lose the faith and the beliefs. It rocks the world, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think most people at that point, when you're suffering, it's easier to dive into a victim mentality, you know? And that's where I was when I lost faith in a source of all things, you know? I lost faith. When I lost faith, I was in victim mentality. It's like, why is this happening to me? Why is life against me? God isn't real. He's like, you know, he's not even here. You know, I used to just question every single thing.
This is the point then, Madiha. I do like that. Yes, my dear. Because I actually do say that. You know, I call my partner Willow, I call her darling, and I say my dear as well. You know, yes, my dear. Yeah. This is the point when you started suffering from anxiety, depression, things along these lines. I've been through all of this. So I've had a nervous breakdown, I had terrible anxiety, I had panic attacks, depression, and yeah, for a long period I couldn't even go outside. You know, it was rough. So yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, so because of all the pressures on my shoulders, I started suffering from crippling anxiety and depression to a point I could not even leave the house. You know, every time I would go to my garden, I would have a severe panic attack. And I used to have like community befrienders come and take me to the garden first, and then they would come again, and then they would take me to the street, and then they would come again, and they would take me to the park. That's how bad it was. And
almost like having a carer, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I was a carer, but there was someone else caring for me.
Yeah.
You know, it was like I was living in my own hell. That was I used to binge eat. I think I may have had eating disorders. You know, binge eat, and I would put on a lot of weight, and then I would go a couple of weeks without eating anything, just throwing up, and it was horrific. It was almost like I was caged in my own hell, and then I didn't see a way out. Such a dark place.
It was a long period as well, this. For myself, it was a much shorter period. It was significant, and I thought about ending my life and all of those things. But for you, this was a decade. You were like this for 10 years.
It was more than 10 years. Around the age of 18, after college, that's when I really, really, really started suffering. And yeah, so it was just, I was cooped up inside of my house for years and years and years. Like, I didn't even see anybody. You know, there were times when, you know, I was working with the community befrienders. There was time I would, you know, be brave enough to go to a shop, but then it was almost like taking 50 steps forward and taking like 200 steps back. It was like a battle going on in my head.
Were you still caring for your mother at this point as well?
Yeah, she had other carers. She had other carers come in at that point as well.
And how did you cope financially? I mean, it's, you know, your mum's ill, you're not working, but I suppose you're getting some benefits or some help.
Yeah, so for carers in the UK, you get carers allowance. So I was getting paid carers allowance, and it's not much, but for me, it wasn't about that. I think it was about the fact that I needed to some way get out there and just be confident again to do things, you know. But carers allowance that's how my base of income. Yeah.
This next point of your journey, this is the turning point. This when everything changes, and it starts where you leave your body.
Yes.
How? Why? What? Where? I mean, I've got 100 questions. Let's go.
Right. Okay. So Well, this is really hard to explain, but like I was laying on my bed one day.
Was there a trigger to this? What?
There was no trigger, nothing. I was still living the same life. I was still everything. Leading up to it, a week leading up to it, I felt really calm for some reason. It was almost like it was like the energy was coming in. Something was happening, but I wasn't aware of anything. But one evening around 6 o'clock, I think, it was around 6 o'clock, I was laying on my bed and all of a sudden I just started, my body started vibrating. It wasn't like shaking, it was like zzz. That was the best way that I could describe it. It was zzz. I was like, and, and all of a sudden it just felt like something, it was like a pop. I don't know how to explain it, but like it was something just separated from my physical to, and I ended up in this place where everything was completely white. And it was when I was in that state, I don't know how to describe it, but there's a state of consciousness, state of being, a state of place, or wherever it was, it just felt like I was home.
Yeah.
This is where I'm originally from. And I felt the unconditional love of something that was bigger than myself.
Yeah.
And there was like, within the white light, there was like beams of light. They was just standing there without any, there was souls standing, from my understanding, there was souls standing there without any physical appearance. And there was one beam of light and I went up to it. You don't even walk there. You float there and communication is like, through the mind.
Yeah.
And I floated up to one light and he turned around and he turned into the face of my dad and he just smiled and he said, everything is okay. Yeah. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And as soon as he said that, I came back and I remember from my right leg to top of my head, my body was vibrating again, that little vibration there, and then all of a sudden all of my body was like vibrating. I was like, what is going on? It was scary and blissful at the same time. Don't know how to describe it. It's just one of the experience that you can't find the words to. And then for a week, I didn't tell anyone what was going on. I was like, I thought I've gone mad. I'm losing my mind. Obviously, I have no spiritual knowledge of what it was. And a week later, same thing happened. I ended up in this place where everything was white again. And I felt this huge bubble of energy just wrapped around me. And like I keep saying, the unconditional love of something that was just, it's something like that I've never felt before, not even from my parents.
Yeah.
And as soon as I came back, I just started to open my eyes and I started mumbling, thank you, God, for everything. Thank you, God, for everything. And I heard the loudest noise on my right ear that said, stay positive and keep going. That was the night. From a person who couldn't leave the house without having panic attacks to doing everything, socializing, helicopter rides, and it was that turning point. It was that turning point.
I can relate to everything you're saying. I've had, which I've talked about before, I've had out-of-body experiences, several. I've experienced astral projection, when I believe with the vibration, that frequency, it creates this separation where your non-physical self can leave your body, and when you do, you experience this warmth, this pure love that you feel like you could just bathe in it, and you don't want to come back. The first time I left my body, quite frightening, and then when this was many years ago, then I practiced it, and I became able to do it more often and had some degree of control over it, and just a wonderful period in my life, and it changes everything, because when you see what's on the other side, there's no fear.
It was like I was given a new pair of eyes to see the world.
Yeah.
That night was, it was like all of my fears washed away, and it was like just the light coming through. It was like a knowing that everything is okay, everything is working out how it should be. So it was like my brain went from victim mentality to darkness and you did this to me, to complete flip. Oh, those experiences, I needed to go through them. It was complete like switch.
Yeah. Quite often in life, when we go through something, we'll, at the time, think it's the end of the world. When I had my first nervous breakdown, it was a game changer. It was all over, and I didn't want to be here. Then now I look back on it, I would not be sat here right now talking to you if I hadn't have been through those things. I wouldn't be the person I am. I wouldn't have the wisdom that I've gained, some degree of wisdom. I wouldn't have written a book. I wouldn't have a radio show. I wouldn't be doing ultra running. None of the things I'm doing now would have happened if I didn't go through that. And I think a nervous breakdown or a spiritual awakening, the shift, whatever you want to call it, for a lot of people, it's a necessary part of the spiritual process. You have to, you built this up, and sometimes you've got to break it down again. You've got to crack it. That's how the light gets in, you know.
It's you have to go through the darkness in order to see the light.
Yes, absolutely. What we didn't cover, Madiha, and I think it's probably relevant now, is tell us about your final moments with your father.
Yeah, so now I had a fear of going to a hospital at that time. And I used to talk to my dad over the phone. But when I found out that, he's only got a couple of days to live, I eventually did end up going to the hospital. And, the state of him was just horrendous. You can see his bones, and his beard was growing, and he could barely talk. And, my final words were, Dad, I don't know, I just felt guided to say it. Dad, if I've ever hurt you in any way, please forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, you're my child. That was the final words with my dad. And, I remember that for the rest of my life, and that I got that closure.
Yeah. This is why sometimes knowing somebody's about to transition, you can see it as a gift, because you have the time to have that conversation. You have the time to get that closure. You do know that when you left your body, that beautiful feeling, that warmth, that being wrapped in love, that pure light, that thing you experienced, that's what your dad's experiencing all the time now. You know, that's what Kelly Walsh, my friend who transitioned at the beginning of this week, she's there now. She's not suffering anymore. She's in peace, experiencing love. So
the way I describe death now is a promotion, and it's not a death. It's a promotion to next level of existence. Yeah.
Basically, we never die.
Yes.
You close your eyes. That is you, your inner voice, your true self, your non-physical presence, your soul never dies. And all we do is we move through different levels, phases, and transition through different, you can call it dimensions, whatever you want. And we move on. And so when we pass, it's not the end, it's the beginning. It's the start of the nice bit of the journey where there's less suffering.
Yes.
So.
But we need to come to this physical world first in order to, like I said, in order to feel that darkness, in order to see the light.
Yeah, I think there's lessons we have to learn, and unfortunately, if you don't get them, you're gonna keep coming back.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Pay attention, folks. If you're having a shit time, you've got to figure it out now, or you'll be plunged back into it again.
Yeah. Get into your healing now. Do it.
Yeah. So on your journey, Madiha, now you're on a bit of a mission, and for a couple of years, you're doing a lot of work on yourself. What does that involve?
So after the awakening, I started doing everything like helicopter rides and started socializing, took up a photography course, and, all of that I was doing externally without any fear. But there was something that my spirit, or like my higher self, was guiding me towards, was going internal, going inwards, and looking at your trash, basically. So every single day I would say, I didn't even tell anyone what I was doing. That's the beauty of it all. I did not know anybody at that time. I did not know whether anybody else was experiencing that. Yeah, okay, I was looking on YouTube and things like that, what my experiences are. But, going within yourself, doing that heavy work, I didn't tell anyone. I would just sit in a corner of my room and I would ask myself these two questions. How are you feeling today? Are you okay? And I would ask myself in the most compassionate and loving way, like how I would ask another human being. As soon as I would ask those questions, everything that I was, suppressing over the years, it started to come up one by one. Everything about my dad, my mom, my rough childhood, and even some of the things that I didn't even realize that I was suppressing were coming up.
See, if you are suppressing something, they're never going to go away. When you resist something like that, it
persists.
Yeah, it's just going to stay. What you resist persists, obviously. So what you've got to do is deal with it head on. The only way to dissolve it, transmute it, to make this thing go away is embrace it.
Embrace it and feel the emotions of it. It's so important for us to feel our feelings, because majority of us in our society, we run away from things. We run away from feelings. Or, you had a breakup. Oh no, I've moved on. I've healed. And then you go out partying and clubbing and you're not dealing with it. You're suppressing it. And what happens is it gets buried inside of you. You try to shake it off from your positive thinking. It's like bypassing the healing from negative to positive. And you try to shake it off, it's still there. You need to sort of purge it out of your system. And that's what I was doing for 2 years, purging, until I sat one day and I was like, okay, what trauma am I gonna bring up for me to just heal? And it wasn't there. Nothing was there. I felt so light and so calm. I was like, okay, let's try to look into a trauma of the teacher. Nothing was there. I was feeling love and compassion for her. And that moment, I thought to myself, maybe, just maybe,
I'm perfect.
Maybe I've healed past the trauma. And I did.
Yeah.
At that moment, it was that easy.
Blaise Pascal says all man's problems stem from his inability to sit quietly in a room on his own. When you turn the lights off, when you're on your own and you go inward, there's nowhere to hide. You've got to deal with your shit.
Yeah.
And that's the way to have a blissful life, is if you've got trauma and stuff, face it, deal with it, get rid of it. Once you've dealt with the problem, when you've dealt with it head on, usually you only have to do that once and it's gone.
Yeah.
But if you keep burying it, suppressing it, and don't deal with it, and kidding yourself, pretending everything's okay and stuff, it'll never go away.
No,
it
won't.
So
there's one thing. It's almost like peeling all the layers of the onion, and once you peel that first layer, you can easily go down to the core of it. It will keep popping up, but then you know what to do. You have the tools to navigate.
Your mind and your subconscious is also very intelligent. It's very clever. For example, when you have dreams are a way of stuff that's going on in your mind. Subconsciously, you fall asleep and it helps process some stuff. But it doesn't overwhelm you. It does it gradually.
Yeah.
And the same usually doesn't give you more than you can handle. That's why if you've got these issues, they'll pop up one at a time and you can process it. And it's designed to work with you, if only you can see it that way.
Yeah. And another thing is our society, if you're listening to this and if you think, oh, well, I haven't been anything traumatic, I haven't been through anything big. Trauma doesn't have to be big. It could be a subtle thing that you've been carrying all those years and it's getting bigger, and it's playing out in your life. So, it's always wise to go in and dig in. What if I'm feeling these feelings and emotion, I'm reacting to this situation in this way. What happened to me in the past that's making me react in this way?
Yeah. And suffering, trauma, experiences, it's all relevant. Somebody who's got OCD and they lose the keys, it's a big problem, you know. Somebody else can use millions of pounds, but if they've got 10 billion pounds, it's not really a problem. It's relative. And so to belittle anybody else's suffering or trauma is a bit foolish, really, and naive. It depends, you know, it's relative. So what isn't a big problem to me could be a huge problem to somebody else.
Yeah. So that's the way you should look at it, you know. That's the perfect way to look at it. Big, small, whatever, trauma is a trauma.
Next, and we're coming more into the present moment now, and you're gaining momentum, you've left your body, you've come back, you've done a bit of inner work, you're off, and you start public speaking.
Yes.
And obviously, I'm going to swear, you must be pretty fucking good at it, because you've won awards. So tell us about this journey.
Right. So after 2 years of intense healing, I started asking the questions, universe, what do I do now? I'm stuck. What do I do? What do you want me to do, universe? And I had a thought, let it go to the universe, because I'm a great believer in the universe. So whenever the time is right. So a couple of weeks later, after I just had that thought, I was at the Law of Attraction meetup, actually, and we were standing outside the building with me, and there were other people, me and my friend, and she was an actress, and she goes to me, she gets stage fright, and she wants to do public speaking. I was like, what is public speaking? And she's like, you know, you go on stages, and I thought it was just a business conference thing. I didn't really think much of it. And she goes, well, you can share your story on stage. I was like, okay. So while we were talking about public speaking, these two guys popped out of the building talking about public speaking at the same time.
Synchronicity and alignment.
Yes. And like they teach public speaking. And I was like, okay, so she did not go for it. I went for it because it was like, I asked for a sign. Maybe that's a sign. So I took it on, and like for 3 months, I ended up doing research on public speaking and obviously taking courses, and I ended up on a stage in front of over 100 people. That was my first live talk. I was sharing my story. And then 3 months later, I ended up on stage again to 150 people, sharing what I did after my story, you know, the inner healing I was telling you about. And then that just led on for me to be like nominated for the Best Female Inspirational Person Award, which I went on to win. And I spoke to over 200 people at the event as well. It was just incredible. Incredible.
Yeah. Considering the story so far and the fact that you didn't really go outside much for 10 years and that you had terrible anxiety and panic attacks, it's a beautiful story.
Yeah, I mean, now I look back at those times, I'm so grateful that I went through it, because those experiences have shaped me into a person that I've become and I'm becoming. It's not over yet. This is just the beginning.
Of course. This is the point where you're also doing some work for TEDx at this point then?
While I was doing public speaking, this guy, Dominic, he was organizing a TEDx event in Preston. And I just somehow ended up on the TEDx team because we have contacts. And I just ended up being their marketing lead on the social media, the official TEDx. And
see, you know where this has got to go. You need to do a TEDx talk.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm putting it out in the universe. It's going to happen.
Well,
it's already happened.
You've won an award for Motivational Person Speaker of the Year. You've been speaking in front of pretty large numbers of people now. I mean, why not?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what you got to do. So a lot of people ask themselves, oh, it won't happen to me, or why? And I'm the other way. I'm thinking, why not?
No, why not? It's already done. It's just the timing of it.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
just got to wait the timing of it. It was an incredible event, though. Amazing event. So many people turned up. So many amazing speakers. Amazing experience. To look back that I couldn't even leave the house. Now I'm like, you know, working at TEDx and on stages. It's just an incredible journey.
Yeah. Tell us about the music video where you're dressed as a warrior, queen, princess, whichever, in armor, and you did this video shoot. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so basically, you know, when I won the award, the guy who organizes the ceremony, the award ceremony, is a singer. So he was looking for warriors, and I happened to have.
Me, I'm a warrior. yeah.
I happen to have a Katniss Everdeen costume.
Because?
Yeah, because, well, I went to a birthday party and it was a movie theme. And I was like, because I'm a warrior, I'm going to buy Katniss Everdeen's costume. So I had it in my wardrobe for ages. I was like, yes, I got another chance to wear it. And he's like, I showed him the dress, and he's like, yeah, bring it over. You'll be in my video. And I was like, yes, I've got a bow, but I've got no arrow. So he gave me the sword. So we just ended up in Huddersfield near a waterfall, and I was like, I got my professional photographer, who's my amazing friend. She follows me around, Lily. She follows me around everywhere. So she's like, I'm gonna be taking photos of you, like dressed as a badass warrior. And it was just an incredible day out. I was just standing there with the sword, and, when the video came out, and, they made it into like a really... I learned how the filming works as well, It's not exactly like, when they're fighting with swords, it's obviously they're miles away from each other, but then there's the editing that comes into it. It's incredible.
Yeah. Who knew? I mean, imagine if your old self sat in your house, curtain twitching because you're frightened to go outside, and you'd see somebody walk past dressed as a warrior, a badass warrior, and you'd be like, my God, who's that? It's me.
It's future me.
Yeah.
Never a million years did I think I would get to that place.
You've also now done a contribution to a book, haven't you? A story to a book that's going to be published. What's that called?
Yeah, so it's Tales to Inspire. So Tales to Inspire were one of the first platform who shared my story on their platform. So my story was one of the 23 stories that they published in the book.
Yeah.
And
is this like a synopsis, a shorter version of, what you've been through, your inspirational story?
Yeah, so basically all the 23 stories were of what of adversity that people been through.
Yeah.
And my story was one of them. It's just incredible. Like I said before, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, would I be in a book? Never even thought it.
Yeah, well, never. Why not? Always ask yourself.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah. And we're bringing you right into the present moment now. And incredibly, this involves Bob Doyle from The Secret. And we've talked about The Secret on the show before. It had a massive impact on my life. Initially, I saw the movie. Then I read the book, and I'm going right back to 2006, 2007. My back, which I showed you, Madiha, is covered with tattoos, quotes from The Secret. And even now, about 12 months back, I watched it again. I've watched it many, many times, because sometimes it's really good just to remind yourself, because it might have been the start of my journey, and it might be now looking at other things that I've read, it might seem a bit simplified, but then you forget. And I watched it again, and I'm like, oh, that's what I'm doing wrong. And you forget some basics. So whatever anybody else says, it's been a massive part of my journey. And Bob Doyle he's out of the movie The Secret, and a very inspirational guy. So how did that come about?
So I was at events now. I'm at events everywhere now. This is my theme now. And I was at this event, and before, it's quite funny. I tell you how I kind of came across The Secret. One of my friends, when I was going through darkest time, she was more conscious and aware. She sent me The Secret CD for my birthday. And I just brushed it aside. What is this woo-woo stuff? I don't care about it, But obviously she planted that seed in me, which came into fruition. Anyway, so I ended up at this event, and when I saw the movie, I really wanted to meet someone from The Secret. It's like, I don't care who it is. I really want to meet someone from The Secret. And we were at this networking evening event, and he was flying in from America. And it just happened that I was going to go to the toilet, and he was just coming in the hotel. So
you were stalking him?
Yeah, well, basically, yes. I sent universe to do that work. And he's like, I'm stalking him. So he's coming in a minute. Yeah, so he was coming in, and I was going to the toilet. We just crossed paths, and I was like... oh my God, the first question, are you Mr. Bob Doyle from The Secret? Why would you ask? Of course he's Mr. Bob Doyle from The Secret. And he goes, yes. And I was like, can I give you a fist bump? And I gave him a fist bump. And he remembers that. Like every time we speak now, he remembers that. And then I got a photo with him and and then I was like, during the event, while he was co-hosting the event, I saw him in the background sitting with nobody while other speakers were speaking. And I was like, this is my opportunity to go up to him and just chill out with him because he's got no one sitting with him. I went over to him. I put my hand and my arm on his shoulder. And I go to him, can I do a Facebook Live with you? And he goes, do I have to? I was like, yes. And he's like, yeah. And then I got him to do Facebook Live.
Yeah.
And then since then, he's my friend now.
So your podcast... And it's on YouTube.
Yes.
It's called Soul Awakenings, which is a beautiful name, actually, and very appropriate because your awakening came when your soul left your body. Or, you had created this separation from your non-physical and physical self when you had an out-of-body experience. But you've done about 10 of these now, haven't you, these Soul Awakenings? Yeah. Yeah.
So the idea behind the Soul Awakening was to help people navigate through their spiritual awakening. Because when I was going through it, even though it was blissful, it was hard as well. Because, when your thought process and your new way of being changes, you need a place to go to. So my platform is basically for them to come to.
I mean, if it's all new to you, and you've not got that support network around you, you can think you're going crazy.
Yes.
You think, what's going on?
Yes. It's so important for you to recognize that it's a spiritual awakening and not a mental breakdown.
This is it, because the start of my spiritual awakening was a nervous breakdown.
Yes.
And at the time, I didn't know what was going on, and I just thought it was the end of the world. And like I said, I just didn't want to be here, couldn't be around people. And I was suicidal. Now I know that was the point where my external world, the actions and the way I felt inside was so out of alignment that something had to give and it broke.
Yeah.
That connection broke and I had to start again.
Yeah.
But there's a quote used in the book and I say, you can't build the truth on a lie.
No.
You can't just tidy this bit up. Sometimes you've got to start from the beginning, fresh foundations.
Yes. And that's what spiritual awakening does. You have to, it's like a clean slate.
What's next for Madiha? Besides world domination.
Well, that is part of the plan. Yeah. Well, but besides from going all over the world, speaking and giving people hope, right now, I always stay in the present moment. I don't plan ahead, I do have goals and dreams, but it's like I let my soul guide me in which direction that I need to take. So right now I'm focusing on the podcast and getting that message out there. It's a platform for people to come and, tap into the experience and knowledge of experts like, Mr. Bob Doyle, who I got him on the series too, and meditation, yoga, and spiritual awakening, dark night of the soul. That's one of the topics. And, that's where I'm basing around right now. So when we get out of lockdown, things may start to, open up, and I'll open up. The more doors will open up.
So, Madiha, if somebody wants to listen to your podcast, where do they go?
So it's my podcast called Soul Awakenings with Madiha Sosan. So you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can also watch the episodes on my YouTube channel, Mad's Corner, MADZ Corner, as in standing in a corner.
Okay. What's your website called?
My website is madihasosan.com.
Spell that for us.
MadihaSosan.com.
Okay. Social media channels. What are your handles and which ones are you on?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook, so you can find me on Facebook, Madiha Sosan, and you can also find me on Instagram, Madiha Sosan 1.
Okay, Instagram, Madiha Sosan 1.
Yeah.
And just spell Madiha Sosan one last time for us.
Okay. MADIHA.
Yes.
SOSAN.
Okay. When this video goes live on YouTube, underneath in the information and the text, I'm going to put the links for your website, your YouTube channel, and we'll also put 2 or 3, probably Facebook and Instagram, for your social media. So if somebody wants to look at what you're doing, get in touch with you and connect with you, boom, they can go straight in.
Fantastic.
Okay. Madiha. Oh, Madiha. It's been lovely having you on the show. Really glad you came. You've got a lovely energy. It's a beautiful story. And I think this is just the beginning. I think great things ahead.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I mean, I absolutely loved being interviewed by you. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share my story.
You're absolutely bloody welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you, Madiha.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, this has been episode number 68 with Madiha Sosan, and it's called Madiha's Magic. I'm going to leave you with a quote now from my first book, From Pills to Peace, and it's by myself, Midnight McBride, and it's simply this. When your response to every situation is love, you have become the light. And I thought that was relevant because I think that's what Madiha's doing now. You can catch this show every Monday and Thursday on YouTube, and you could subscribe and you'll get notifications. You can get the audio podcast for this show, which comes out 3 days later, and that's on Spotify, Podbean, Amazon, Google, iTunes, and a lot of others. You can listen to the radio show every Monday night on Salford City Radio 94.4 FM. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn. You can go to the website, midnightmcbride.com, and you can buy the first book, From Pills to Peace, on Amazon and in a lot of other places, and that's in Kindle and paperback form. And you can also get the audiobook on iTunes, ACX and Audible. I hope you've enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next time. Shalom.
So, you're gonna lose me now. So yeah, around
What you find is as well, once we get 10, 15 minutes into the show, they just disappear anyway.
His wife, well, actually, it's my auntie, and it's.
I'll start again.
Of it.
Yeah. I mean, I often want to get dressed up in, rubber clothing and hit my partner with the ruler. Excuse me. I'll probably cut that. But the big questions start coming up. So you then decide.
Sorry, just burped then.
We'll put that in
That's going to go on bloopers.
Yeah. Initially, I saw the music.
You got to do some bloopers on
again.
this.
Yeah. Initially, I saw the music. Oh, God. Yeah.
Don't get me started, honestly.
And it's simply this. Can't remember.
So I'm standing here in front of all of you to show you that change can happen. You can turn your life around. The key to everything in life is to not to give up no matter how hard your life may be. During the darkest days of your life, that's when you experience the most growth. So when you're going through hard times, just know that it's making you strong in so many ways that you don't even realize yet. Live your life without any fear and watch how it flows for you. When the hard times arrive, just trust in the process and have faith that it will pass, because it will. So like I said, since everything I was doing outside of me wasn't working, I made it my mission that was spend some time with myself every single day with no distractions, no running away for what I needed to feel in order to heal. This is what I was doing every single day. I would sit in a comfortable place and ask myself in the most loving way, like how I would ask another human being. Hand on heart, 2 questions. How are you feeling today? Are you okay?